Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 9th of February. I'm going to share with you some of the big events of this week, then on screen the event chart on Monday. That always provides an influential insight for the following week. I'll then go through each of those influences in detail, frame by frame, to give a clear picture of what we can collectively expect. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel, and a very warm welcome. Your views, comments and likes are truly appreciated. I've also been getting some hypes recently, which is a new thing apparently on YouTube. Thank you for those too. If you're new here, welcome, and if you could subscribe, please do so to help the channel to continue to thrive. Two big events on Monday: a quarter moon in Scorpio, where the moon is not at its best, it's in its full, but also a clash between Venus and Uranus. What's the significance? But on Tuesday, Venus moves into the final zodiac sign of Pisces. She loves being there, is exalted. What does that mean? Now, we are going to have from Thursday to Saturday Mercury, which moved into Pisces last week, aligning with the North Node, the point of destiny in the sign of Pisces. What's the significance of that? Now, at the end of the week on Saturday, we do have Saturn. The sign that Saturday is named after, moving out of Pisces finally and into the sign of Aries, where it will be through to April 2028. If you recall, last year Saturn moved into Aries from the end of May, the 25th, through to the 1st of September. So it's a very big deal. Saturn is very much to do with time, fate, karma, and of course can be about limitations. Is in its full in Aries, so it's not its most favourable transit, and I will unpack that for you too. But at the end of the week, which starts the week of course with Venus in a tense right angle with Uranus, and by the end of the week the Sun is moving forwards to come into conflict with Uranus as well. So on the screen now is the event chart. As ever, we need to be mindful of the two luminaries, the moon and also the Sun. And you can see the Sun is in the sign of Aquarius still, but it's just moved into the third decan, which is sub-ruled by Venus, very much to do with relating. But we also have the moon in the sign of Scorpio, and later on Monday, as the moon moves forwards, that's when we get the quarter moon. We get two quarter moons each month, and the moon in Scorpio is in her full. So her second favourite location after Cancer, which she rules, is Taurus, where she is exalted. So in Scorpio, she can feel a little bit insecure, maybe a bit protective, or maybe at times fearful, and that could show up in that square with the Sun, because the Sun and the array of talent we've had in Aquarius has been pushing us recently to collaborate, to connect, to network, to seek out people who share our higher values. So it's possible that in a group dynamic, if someone is being a bit possessive or controlling, or we're not feeling it in a relationship for the long term, that the right angle between Venus and Uranus and that quarter moon on Monday suggests that there could be some tension. Now, Venus squaring Uranus can, as it did at the end of last week, encourage us to be a bit more spontaneous. Relationships of all kinds can get into a pattern, and if we're honest, we can take people for granted. So the square with Uranus brings a bit of spark and excitement, but it also could bring a crossroads in a relationship to the fore. Do you want the same things? Do you share the same values? With Venus in Aquarius, that points towards a bit more freedom, or being drawn to more unusual or individualistic people. There could be a connection to somebody new who makes your pulse race, but will it be for the long term? But then quickly on Tuesday, as we go into the week, Venus does dive deep into the watery sign of Pisces and brings it starts its journey in the final zodiac sign. Venus, as I mentioned, is exalted here, and at the end of February, Venus in Pisces is going to forge an incredibly romantic relationship with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, so a very watery dynamic in the last week of February. So if you do meet someone around then and your values align, it could be a real meeting of minds, but also a soul connection as well. So Venus in Pisces can make us more conscious of the things outside the material plane, because Venus rules Taurus, so it is about money, it can be about values, it can be about foundations. The more ephemeral energies of Pisces is a shimmering one, so it can really help us to perhaps expand our imagination, set our hopes in place, our intentions, if there is somebody we're intrigued by. But I also feel, particularly coming straight after the square to Uranus, if we're not really feeling it around a relationship, Venus moving into Pisces could prompt us to think, is it time to let go, to release something that no longer works for us? And that doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a way of earning money, it could be a friendship that we're not enjoying. It doesn't have to be about an intimate tie. But as I mentioned, at the heart of this week, we do have Mercury aligning with the node, and the North Node, and that actually can be a very positive thing. I know that Mercury is detrimented in Pisces, and it can be more difficult for Mercury to express its clarity and its accuracy, particularly that comes from its rulership of Virgo. But what it can do here is help us to think in a more sensory way, and with Venus in the sign of Pisces too, and Saturn about to leave, that's really nicely timed. But what about Saturn? I do feel this will get the most amount of coverage in terms of astrological news. And of course, Saturn is a big deal because going through the sign of Pisces, Saturn likes boundaries. Pisces resists them. Pisces is a limitless energy, which makes it so fascinating, but also at times very complex. So Saturn moving into Aries is the beginning of a new 29.5-year cycle through the entire heavens. So it's just completing one. So we have two events in 1 week with Saturn, the end of a cycle, the beginning of a cycle. And we really need to acknowledge that, because Saturn is, of course, to do with structures, it can be to do with authority, it can be to do with big business, government, it can be to do with the orthodox, it can be to do with where we may feel a bit inhibited. So something could come to a close at this time, but we can begin again. And because we had Saturn into Aries last year, we had an opportunity to test drive this particular planetary ingress. But how will it feel this year? Because, of course, last year it was aligned with Neptune pretty well the whole time that it was in Aries, and that was a very complex influence. Now, they're going to come into an exact conjunction on the 20th. Obviously, Neptune moved back into Aries on the 26th of January, and that will be significant. But I think in terms of widening the lens, the connection between Saturn and Neptune, I feel, will turn out to be more potent last year than this year. But that doesn't mean to say something really powerful can't happen around the 20th of February. But Saturn is going to move through the gearbox quite quickly. It gets up to 14 degrees. So it's not like last year where it just nudged its way into Aries. It's actually going to pick up speed. But Saturn here, because Aries is about the body, Neptune, of course, is a watery energy, and Aries is fire, and Saturn can be to do with oppression. So we could see big power used in a warlike way. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to be fearful, it's just that because Uranus is clashing with Mars, the planet of war, in the last week of this month, and at the end of this week, the Sun is in a clash with Uranus, and at the start of this week, Venus is clashing with Uranus. And Uranus, in a broad sense, since it first moved into Taurus in the middle of May 2018, has seen a lot of very unsettling events, whether it's been about cryptocurrencies becoming much more entrenched, not a bad thing in itself, but we've also seen a lot of retail banks closing in communities, which has made it much more difficult for people to get the support of those services. Not everybody wants to live online. We have got certain people who want to push back against cash. And cash, again, is something that can be exchanged without any kind of audit. So if everything can be trailed through the internet or technology, that is potentially going to reduce our freedom, which is what Uranus is about. Uranus is also, of course, very rebellious, but the sign, the host, the Taurus, is about land. It's about resources. It can be about consumables. It can be about things like that are quarried out of the ground, and we have seen in a very electric, quick, aggressive way a lot of actions in terms of people passing over borders and seizing things that don't belong to them. So that's been quite the theme over the last 7 years. So I feel there could be some more of that at the end of this week. And Saturn in Aries, because Aries is very much about the individual, could see some kind of dominating energy trying to limit the rights of individuals. And all this is in the mix. So the Aquarius energy, which is battling with all of this, because of course the sun does move next week into Pisces, is just reminding us that if we work collectively together, we share how we feel, we're supportive of one another, it can push back against the power of certain individuals that have so much power that it's not necessarily a good thing. So that really is the week in the whole. If you've yet to personally order your unique forecast for the coming year based on your birth data, the information it gives you is far beyond what a zodiac forecast can provide. And they're very good value, but also they're very accurate in terms of the timing. And I'm continuing to offer these at 50% off if you apply Astro 26 at the checkout. So please see the link below for more on that. For your individual zodiac forecast, please see the playlist beneath this overview.